This is Mrs. Wayner's math class, Chapter 1, Lesson 7B. Multiply by a two-digit factor, the traditional method. Today's learning target, by the end of the lesson, you should confidently be able to say, I can choose and use the multiplication method that works best for me, either box method or traditional method. Often, there's more than one way to correctly solve a math problem, and every mind works differently. So pick the method that seems easiest to you. This is the same for adults as well. I know sometimes Mrs. Castellano and myself will solve a math problem differently. I know Mrs. Neves and myself will solve a math problem differently. And as long as the method that you're using works, that's fine. But you have to go by what works best with your mind. We don't always show you every single method that can be used to solve a problem in class. So, if someone shows you a way to solve a problem that's different from what you learn in class, come and show it to one of us first. If it's a method that always works, we'll give you 4 of our problems to solve. And if you pass that little mini quiz by getting all of the problems solved correctly with that new method, we may and we will probably choose to give you permission to use that method every time. But if it's a method different from what we teach, you have to show it to us first, and you have to have Mrs. Castellano or myself give you the permission to use that method. When we do worksheets for this lesson, we will follow this method as shown in the lesson. Today we'll be learning multiplication, the traditional method. For this Chapter 1, Lesson 7B worksheet, we will all use the traditional method and show all steps as shown in the video. After that, you'll be able to choose either box or traditional method, whichever you prefer. Wait for us to give you that notice about choosing the methods. Right now we're just doing traditional to see which we like best. Number 1, I have two-digit factor times two-digit factor, 38 times 26. First, I'll find an estimate. 38 rounds to 40, and 26 rounds to 30. 4 times 3 is 12. Tack on my 2 zeros. That's 1, 2, 3, comma, 1,200. So my estimated answer is 1,200. When I finish the actual answer, I'll go back and see if it's reasonable. First, I take my number on the bottom and I'm going to multiply everything by the ones column. I see that the 6 is in the ones column. I've highlighted it in red. So in my 38, the digit in the ones column is the 8. I've highlighted that in blue. So what do I think as I solve this? I think 6 times 8 equals 48. So I put down the 8 and I carry the 4 over the next column. I've now multiplied by the 8, which is in the ones column. So I'm going to move on to the tens column. Remember, my 3 is in the tens column. I'll highlight that in purple. And I'm going to think 6 times 3 equals 18. I have that 4 that I carried, so I add that 4 on. 8 plus 4 is 12. Put down the 2, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I have 22. Put down the 2 from the ones column. There's nothing to carry the 2 from the tens column over, so I put down the 2 from the tens column as well. There's nothing else to multiply my 6 by, so I'm done with it. This step takes 2 seconds and makes a big difference in getting the answers correct or incorrect because of confusion. I'm done with the 6, so I put a line through it to cross it out, and I put a line through everything that I carried when I multiplied by the 6, so I don't get confused for the next step. Since I'm done with the 6, I move to the digit next to it, which is the 2. I'll highlight it in orange. That 2 in the number 26 is in the tens column, and the number 10 has 1 0. So I need to put down a place value 0. I underline it so that I put the place value 0 shows me that I'm multiplying by a digit in the tens column. Again, underlining it is an important step. It takes an extra 2 seconds, so we don't get confused if we were to multiply and get an answer that ends in a 0. And with this 2, I'm going to go back to the ones column on my 38, so I'll be multiplying 2 times 8. I've highlighted it in blue. And I think in my head, 2 times 8 equals 16. So I put down the 6, and I carry the 1 over the next column. Now I move on to 2 times 3, so I think in my head 2 times 3 equals 6, plus the 1 that I carried, 6 plus 1 is 7. So I put down the 7 right there. I'm finished with the 2, so I cross it out. There's no other digits to multiply by, so now I'm ready to add my columns. Put a plus sign and an equal bar, and we go ahead and add 8 plus 0 equals 8, 6 plus 2 equals 8, and 7 plus 2 equals 9. So my final answer is 988. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 1. Remember, you can go back to this screen as often as possible. Stop it as you go to help you solve the problem step by step. Example number 2 takes it to the next level for 2 reasons. First, I have a 3-digit number as my top factor, and second, one of my digits is 0. So let's see how we solve number 2. First thing, as always, we need to find our estimate. 309 rounds to 300, 78 rounds to 80, so 300 times 80, 3 times 8 is 24. Tack on my 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. Count backwards to my commas. 1, 2, 3, comma. So my estimate is 24,000. Let's go ahead and solve the problem, and we'll go back and check to see if our estimate shows that our answer is reasonable. So again, I have 309 times 78. In my bottom number, I look at my ones column, and that's the 8. In my top number, I'll multiply that by my ones column, and that's the 9. And what I think in my head is 8 times 9 equals 72. So I put down the 2 and carry the 7 over the next column. Now I'll multiply the 8 times the 0, which I'll highlight in purple, and I'll think in my head 8 times 0 equals 0, plus the 7 that I carried equals 7. So I write the 7 down. Now I'll be multiplying 8 times the 3, which is in the hundredths column. I'll highlight that in green. So I think in my head 8 times 3 equals 24. I didn't carry anything, so I put down the 4. There's nothing to carry the 2 over, so I put down the 2 as well. There's nothing else to multiply the 8 by, so I take that simple step and I cross out the 8 and everything I carried when I multiplied by the 8. Since I'm done with the 8, I move over to the 7. Let's highlight the 7 in orange. The 7 is in the tens column, and the number 10 has 1, 0, so I need to put down a place value 0 and underline it to show that I'm multiplying by the number that's in the tens column. And I'll take that 7 and go back all the way to the right, the ones column on my top number, so I'll highlight that 9 for us. We're going to say 7 times 9 equals 63. Put down the 3, carry the 6 over the column next to it. Now I'll multiply the 7 by the tens column, so I'll highlight that in purple. And I think in my head 7 times 0 equals 0, plus the 6 that I carried equals 6, so I'll write down my 6. I move to the left to the hundredths column, so I'll highlight my 3 in green, and I think in my head 7 times 3 equals 21. I didn't carry anything, so I put down my 1 and my 2 since there was nothing to carry the 2 over. There's nothing else to multiply my 7 by, so I cross it out to show that I'm done with it. I have no more digits on the bottom to multiply by, so I'm ready to go ahead and add. I write down my plus sign and I put my equal bar. Those are 2 very important things. You will not get credit for showing work if you don't have the plus sign and the equal bar. And now I can go ahead and add. Ones column, 2 plus 0 equals 2. I move to the tens column, 7 plus 3 equals 10. Put down the 0, carry the 1. I move to the hundredths column. I have a 1, 4, and 6, and guess what I see? I see some partners of 10. 4 and 6 make 10, plus 1 is 11. So put down the 1, carry the 1. I move to the thousands column. I say 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And I move to the 10,000s column. Nothing plus 2 is 2. Done adding, so let's count backwards to put my comma in. 1, 2, 3, comma. Final answer, 24,100. Go back to my original estimate, and I estimated that my answer should be about 24,000. So my actual answer of 24,102 is certainly a reasonable answer. I think I got it correct. Please stop the video and complete worksheet number 2. And we're up to problem number 3, which I see as a word problem. Mrs. Castellano buys 24 bracelets a year for gifts. She does this every year for 13 years in a row. How many bracelets did Mrs. Castellano buy in 13 years? Strategy for word problems, first thing I do is underline my question. So if I find my question mark, I backtrack to the capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. So my actual question says, how many bracelets did Mrs. Castellano buy in 13 years? Now let's go back and see what I know. I know that she buys 24 bracelets every year. I know that she does this for 13 years in a row. Every single year it's 24 bracelets. So it's the same number over and over and over again. 24 bracelets every single year. That tells me this is going to be a multiplication problem. 24 times 13 equals blank. Now, since this is a word problem, I know my answer will need to have a word or a unit, so I'm going to go back to my problem and see if I can find what word or unit I need. My question asks how many bracelets, so that's what I'm looking for, is the number of bracelets, so my answer will have the word bracelets. I kind of like to do that right at the beginning because I'm afraid I'll forget to put the word at the end, and I need to have a word at the end for a word problem. So let's go ahead and solve this problem. I'll write my problem vertically, 24 times 13, and put my equal bar. Again, I must have the multiplication sign and the equal bar. And I'm ready to go ahead and solve. My bottom number, I'll concentrate on the 3 first, and I'll say 3 times 4 is 12, put down the 2, carry the 1. And now I say 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I'm done with the 3, so cross it out along with everything I carried. I move on to the 1, which is in the tens column, so I put a place value 0 to show that I'm multiplying by a digit in the tens column. I'm going to say 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 2 is 2. Add these together, and I say 2 plus 0 is 2, 7 plus 4 is 11, put down the 1, carry the 1, 1 plus 2 is 3. So my answer is 312 bracelets. Let's read my question. How many bracelets did Mrs. Castellano buy in 13 years? The answer is 312 bracelets. Let's stop, go back to our estimate, and see if this is reasonable. Oh no, I stopped to go back to my estimate and realized I didn't estimate. So okay, I'm going to go ahead and estimate. I'm going to say 24 rounds to 20, and 13 rounds to 10. And 20 times 10, well, basic facts, 2 times 1 is 2. Tack on my 2 zeros is 200. So when you're in the hundreds, it's around the same amount. It's not like I said my answer should be 20 and I got 300. They're still in the 100. So this is a reasonable answer. Therefore, my final answer will be 312 bracelets. How many bracelets did Mrs. Castellano buy in 13 years? She bought 312 bracelets in 13 years. Please stop and complete worksheet number 3.